Social media and news articles are full of it right now. House burping. Supposedly, this is a brand new trend and mom hack that people are super excited about. Meanwhile, us Germans are watching this and thinking, wait, you guys haven't been doing this your whole lives? Hello, servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Feli. I'm a German who spent the last 9 years living in Cincinnati, Ohio, but actually just moved back home to Munich, Germany in September. And when I first came across this new internet hype called house burping, I genuinely couldn't believe it.
Have you all heard about this TikTok trend where you burp your house, where you open your windows even when it's really cold and negative degrees outside? I've got a crosswind going over here. That window's open and it's supposed to air out your house so that you keep sickness away. I don't know. We'll see if it works, but let me know if you guys have tried it.
Yes, we've tried it. And if you guys have been following me for a while, you've definitely heard me talk about it before too. Germans are also pretty obsessed with Stoßlüften, Lüften, which is something that Germans love to do. Of course, in German, we call this practice Lüften, and I've always translated it as airing out your home. But I do have to admit that house burping is definitely more fun to say. In Germany, this has been a very basic, standard practice for generations. Like, I never even thought twice about it until I moved abroad. You know, growing up, your parents will just regularly air out the house by opening several windows at the same time, either throughout the entire home, or you can also just air out one specific room, such as your bedroom, or maybe the bathroom. But it works best if you have at least 2 windows that you can open up at the same time, and if they're somewhat opposing one another, even better. That way you can create some real airflow. Because the whole idea behind this is that you get the old, stuffy, low oxygen air out and replace it with new, fresh air from outside. Speaking of fresh air, if you'd like some fresh air in your streaming selection, I would recommend trying out today's sponsor, PIA. I know, genius transition, but you guys already know PIA anyways. It's the VPN that I've been using for years now, and if you don't know what a VPN is, it's a virtual private network that allows you to access the internet through a server in a different city or even another country, while it not only encrypts your internet connection and protects your IP address, but also allows you to see prices for airline tickets, video games, or streaming libraries from a whole different location in the world. A lot of people like to check airline prices while logged into a server in Malaysia or Indonesia, for example, because it often shows you a much lower price than when you book it from the US or from Germany. And logging into servers in other countries also allows you to access the content libraries on their respective streaming services. When you log in through the UK, for example, you can watch The Office on Netflix without any ad breaks. Or to share an example from my own life, Ben and I are currently on the last season of Friends. It's our first time watching the show, and it used to be on Netflix here in Germany, but of course they just took it off in December. But I just so happen to know that when I log into the South Africa server on PIA, I can watch it anyway. Ben also has been using it a ton for watching sports ever since we moved to Germany. And since PIA has servers in all 50 US states, you can even get around regional blackouts. So it comes in quite handy. One subscription allows you to install it on unlimited devices, which makes it really easy for us. And if you scan my QR code or go to piavpn.com/Feli from Germany, you'll even get to try it 4 whole months for free. And then you'll get 83% off, meaning it'll only be $2.03 a month, less than a cheeseburger at McDonald's. Just scan my QR code or check out the details in the description below. Now, getting back to Lüften, growing up, I never even really thought about why we do this. It was just something that felt good. Like, it smells better afterwards, and you feel like you're breathing some of that healthy, fresh air. You know, like the Airwaves commercials. But with just air. It kind of wakes you up too. But if you thought that Lüften is something that Germans do just for fun whenever they feel like it, think again, because we even have regulations in this country that make Lüften mandatory. If you're renting an apartment, for example, it might actually be part of your lease that you're obligated to air out the apartment daily. And even if it's not explicitly stated in your lease, German courts have ruled that tenants can be held accountable if they don't air out the apartment properly. You might risk getting a warning from your landlord, or worst case, even have your lease terminated. The reason being that improper ventilation can actually lead to mold in the apartment. Apparently, there are several court cases that specifically suggest that Lüften should take place 2 to 3 times a day. By the way, the officially recommended practice of Lüften in Germany is called Stoßlüften, often translated as shock ventilation, where you open up your windows all the way for about 5 to 10 minutes at a time and then fully close them again. The reason I'm saying fully open and fully close is that German windows can also be set to a tilt position, and a lot of people actually prefer keeping their windows like that for longer periods of time because you get that nice little breeze into the house, but it's not quite as intense as opening the window all the way, especially right now in the winter. However, keeping your window on tilt is considered pretty bad in regards to energy efficiency, and it's not ideal to avoid mold either. Another big reason Germans air out their places is health. Stoßlüften was even part of the official guidelines during the COVID-19 pandemic here in Germany. This document by the Max-Planck-Gesellschaft from 2021 recommended that schools shock ventilate every 20 minutes for a duration of 5 minutes each time, plus open up the windows between each period. During the cold season, 2 to 3 minutes was considered enough because air gets exchanged more quickly when there's a bigger difference in temperature. As you can tell, Germans were very particular about this, or still are. The reasoning here is that by airing out the room, people's aerosols and germs get sent outside, and new fresh air comes into the classroom, reducing the risk of infection through the air. That being said, I don't want you to think that Lüften was in common practice in school and offices before the pandemic. Even when I went to school, our teachers regularly made us open up the windows in our classrooms, even in the middle of winter. It's also super common at a gathering when it gets too stuffy that someone will say something like, "Können wir mal lüften?" It's just a normal thing to do around here. Which is why Germans are pretty shocked about this new social media trend.
Es gibt kein dümmeres Volk als das der USA. Die haben Stoßlüften für sich entdeckt, ich weiß nicht, was sie bis jetzt gemacht haben, und nennen das Social Media Trend House Burping, Hausrübsen. Seid ihr komplett von allen guten Geistern verlassen? Was habt ihr bis jetzt gemacht? Habt ihr nicht gelüftet?
Okay, please take this with a grain of salt. This last guy may have sounded a little harsh, but yeah, a lot of Germans are wondering what the heck Americans have been doing up until now if they've never aired out their homes. To us, this is like learning that some people don't wash their clothes. Like, how is that even possible? And this woman wants to know how American homes smell if they don't air them out.
Ich habe eine Frage an die Menschen, die einen Schüleraustausch in den Staaten gemacht haben, also in der USA. Wie riechen deren Häuser? Wie riechen deren Häuser und deren Wohnungen? Die haben einen Trend für sich entdeckt. House Burping. House Burping in den deutschen Kontext übersetzt ist Lüften. Lüften. Also meine Frage an die Menschen, die dort in Familien zu Hause mit denen waren, so bla bla bla. Wie ist die Luft in deren Häusern? Wie ist die Luft in deren Häusern? Ich würde es so gerne wissen. Ich weiß nicht, ob das Propaganda ist oder so, dass man Amerika nicht mag. Ich weiß es nicht. Ich will wissen, wie die Luft in den Häusern ist und wie das für dich war, wenn du in den Staaten bei einer Familie warst und du bist reingelaufen und du hast gemerkt, Digga, die lüften nicht. Tell me. Bitte, bitte schreibt's mir in die Kommentare. Das interessiert mich so sehr. Lüften die wirklich nicht oder sind es halt so vereinzelt weirde Menschen? Danke.
Now, I do have to say that despite being German myself, when I lived in the US, I didn't air out my place a whole lot either. I mean, I tried at the beginning, but I quickly noticed that it didn't really work very well with those American windows that only slide up halfway and usually have a bug screen attached to them. That's the thing that usually gives Americans a heart attack, by the way. German windows don't typically come with screens, unless you decide to manually install them yourself, but they're not standard here at all. And this is just a guess on my end. happened, but I think that lüften might actually be one of the reasons why. Because in the US, my experience was that even when I opened several windows at a time, this whole exchanging the air thing didn't really work properly. There just wasn't a lot of airflow. At the same time, I also noticed that American homes don't seem to get as stuffy as German homes. So to answer the girl's question from earlier about what American homes smell like, in my experience, just fine. I mean, of course, it depends on the household, but I haven't noticed a significant difference in smell between German and American homes. And I think one of the reasons for this is that most homes in the US have that typical American central air conditioning with vents all throughout the house that you have air blowing out of. In the summer, it's cold air, and in the winter, this is your heating, so you'll have hot air coming out of it. That way, you automatically have some kind of air circulation all day long. And even homes that don't have central air usually have at least window AC units or a mini split, you know, something that blows air into their home. And ceiling fans are super common in the US too, so there's definitely air movement in most American homes. Additionally, I think that most American houses aren't insulated as well as German homes, and walls aren't nearly as thick and sturdy as they are here in Germany, where houses usually have brick or concrete walls. Exterior walls are generally somewhere around 15 inches thick in German buildings, whereas in the US, it's usually more around 6 inches. And those German windows are typically pretty well sealed as well, especially if they're newer. So my guess is that American homes probably tend to be a little draftier and get more airflow that way. I at least didn't burp my house regularly when I lived in the US, and that goes for all of the places I've lived in, which was a total of 5, because there wasn't really a big need for it. And because it didn't really work anyway. Now, I do want to point out that the German people's love for fresh air goes beyond just lüften. Many Germans even sleep with the window open at night. Even in the winter, many people here simply cannot sleep without that feeling of fresh air. And that includes several of my family members. Personally, I don't do that, but I know many Germans who do. Meanwhile, in the US, I've heard a lot of people say that sleeping with your window open would be too dangerous due to crime. I'm sure that only applies to certain areas, but still, that's not something I've ever heard a German say. Aside from that, Germans also love spending time outside. If you work from home, for example, and you haven't left your apartment all day, you might say something like, ich war heute noch gar nicht an der frischen Luft. I've literally never heard an American say something like that. And of course, we're a country of Spaziergänger. We love going on walks. We even have a term called Sonntagsspaziergang, the Sunday walk, which is a custom that's been around for about 200 years. But it's not just walks. Germans enjoy all kinds of outdoor hobbies, really, from cycling to skiing to rollerblading, swimming, ball sports. Germans just love going outside as much as they can. What's funny is that even though lüften is so common in our culture, a lot of Germans don't enjoy it when there's a constant draft, like when you have an air conditioning unit blowing at full blast, or even when a ceiling fan is on. In that case, we might say, es zieht, meaning it's drafty, and we might even feel like a scratchy throat coming along. Seems kind of contradictory at first, but what can I say? It's a thing. By the way, house burping isn't the first social media trend that seems to be kind of similar to normal German customs. In the last few years, there was also the social media trend of girl dinner, which reminded a lot of people of classic German Abendbrot, so our traditional cold dinner. Then there's been a trend called fart walks, where people recommended going for a walk after meals, which again is common practice in Germany as well and is known as Verdauungsspaziergang. And there's also been a recent hype around these reusable dishcloths. Many Americans seem to be fascinated that you can use these instead of paper towels, while here in Germany, these are a staple item in every kitchen and are simply called Lappen, so like a rag. Of course, a lot of these things aren't uniquely just German, but are common in countless other countries across Europe and around the world as well. But I can only speak from a German perspective, and all of these trends have gotten a good amount of attention here, with people wondering why these normal, everyday things were suddenly considered new and trendy. So what do you guys think of lüften or house burping? Is this something you do in your everyday life? Or what are your thoughts on all of this? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't watched my last 2 videos, where I made a little 2-part documentary about the sister city partnership between Munich and Cincinnati, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a watch. I made these videos in collaboration with the German embassy in Washington, and I've gotten great great feedback from viewers so far, but it seems like they weren't really played out to a lot of you guys. So I'll link them down below, and I would really appreciate it if you took a look. And of course, if you enjoy my content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, follow me on all of my other platforms, and with that, I hope I'll see you next time. Tschüss!